Max Orland, Melbourne Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
This is Nat Fyfe from the Fremantle Footy Club.
Trent Cotchin from the Richmond Footy Club.
Scott Pendlebury from the Collingwood Football Club. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Patrick Cooch from the Carlton Footy Club.
It's Rory Sloane here from the Adelaide Crows.
This is Tom Mitchell. You're listening to the Coaches Panel.
Hey, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. I hope you're well. And for SuperCoach, it is a fascinating week of fantasy footy for us to unpack. And on this episode, we've got to talk about the most traded in player in Jordon Sweet. We need to talk about quote-unquote must-haves, our upgrade cadence versus our bench hygiene, paying up for top-end premiums and looking for some value, as well as a bunch of other stuff to work our way right throughout this podcast episode. But joining me on this episode he has ever since the Coaches Panel formed, it is fellow co-founder Rids. Mate, nice to see you. And in this week of SuperCoach, it feels like it's an interesting week because, let's be honest, it's the first time all year we've gone back-to-back best 22 weeks. And my, oh my, did we feel it in round 7 in some teams and some squads?
It's an interesting week, this one, because for the first time in a long time, and I know we've had bits and pieces of a downgrade rookie to go through, but we just haven't had someone like Closey a couple of weeks ago when he was going to break all the records. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah. Then we had Graham the weeks. Then we've got like Garcia last week. But this is the real one. You know what I mean? This feels like the first time we've got that guy, the absolute moneymaker guy for the next 5 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it is, where he's going to actually spin a lot of cash for us. In Jordon Sweet, which means for the first time in a long time, and I don't know about you, MJ, but we've been burning these trades, yeah? Because we've had extra trades, we've had extra boosts. We're going nuts with trading right now in SuperCoach. The SuperCoach world has just gone on a trade-a-thon, right?
Yep.
But this is the first time we can genuinely say, I can go one down and one up and get to pretty much anyone on any line. And what a week this is. This is how we used to play, yeah?
Yeah, it really is. We've got to talk about Jordon Sweet. You've put him fair and rightfully so at the very top of our mind. Let's just be very clear. Every coach should be trading into Jordon Sweet. There's no must-have, quote unquote, but there are moves that if you don't make, my goodness me, you're really putting yourself on the back foot to success. And so I don't think anybody's going, I don't know about Jordon Sweet. The fact is the club have not only named him on Wednesday night teams, there's no Finlayson. So he's solo rucking. In the same week, they've also come out and said that Soldo is 4 to 5 weeks away. So that pretty much puts him right up to the edge of Port Adelaide's bye, which is the easiest mid-season bye to get to, which again, we'll talk about them in a minute. So the question, Rids, isn't, should we be trading into Sweet? That's the wrong question. The question I want to pose to you is, how should we be looking to get into Jordon Sweet? And what are the moves we can make, knowing there is the opportunity to loophole his scoring, given it's a Thursday night game? Who are the players that we should be looking to offload and move? And talk me through a couple of different scenarios to help coaches. Some have rucked that they're going to move on. Some are looking at other plays. How do we make this Sweet move work for us? Because he's going to be an absolute ripping cash generator for us.
I'm going to make massive assumptions right now, MJ.
Please.
Everyone who doesn't own Sweet right now has a DPP forward ruck, bottom priced guy sitting
Livingston,
there at
Barnett,
R3.
Heath, something like that. I think that's a fair assumption.
Whoever it is, okay?
Yeah.
That's who we're looking at. So right now, what are we, round 8 now? It's time to actually... Yeah, so we've got a lot of fat rookies, a lot of fat cows there, okay? Whether it's, if we're going to go looking at a Dempsey, for instance, or maybe it's Darcy, or maybe it's, let's say Wilson,
Karmas.
Okay?
Sure.
Maybe there's a couple of midfielders. Sharp would be a perfect player, okay?
Yep.
And everyone should have DPP players. We should be trading into Sweet at R3 at the very, very least, and we should be doing it right now. Make sure you get your team set up, okay? Because the fact is there's still going to be loops options at F6 because of this action, okay? If it's a Livingston that goes into your F8 position right now, you might be able to loop between a Wilson or a Garcia and a Sam Darcy, for instance, okay, at F6. So you'll be able to put Wilson on the bench or Garcia on the bench with the E, then see what he scores. If he goes over a certain 70, 75, maybe you're happy to take that. If you're happy to take it, then you throw Livingston at F6 and you take the score. And you've also got a VC loophole with the captaincy as well option just there.
Yeah.
So you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul in that aspect. But I'm going to also make another assumption here. There's two types of owners. There's two types of coaches in SuperCoach, rightio?
Yeah.
They're the ones that own Gawn and English as a combination.
Yep. And there's a few thousand of those. Yeah.
And then there's everyone else, okay?
Yeah.
It's like you've got a Gawn and a Cherry or a Gawn and a Grundy. Whatever it is, there's a
Gawn,
different
Marshall,
combination.
something like that. Yeah.
So let's categorize it. Anyone with Gawn and English, do not look at Sweet as R2, please, this week.
It's R3
Just
only.
trade into him as R3. That's the only option you're looking at. And he's only going to be a cash generator until he actually falls out of that team. Whether it's through Soldo, whether it's through injury, whatever, when he makes his cash for you, you can then flip him to whoever you want down the stretch, whether it's round 14 after the bye, round 13, whatever happens will happen, okay?
Sure.
Then there's everyone else. If you've got one of English and Gawn at R1 and you got anyone at R2, and that could be Cherry, that could be, I don't know, Grundy, that could be Marshall, okay? That's the interesting conversation because you know what? Sweet now has a little bit of security around this role. We know that sole rucks in SuperCoach are some of the best role for scoring that you can possibly have, especially someone like Sweet, who's mature age body. He's not like an 18-year-old kid that's just come into the system to fill in. He's actually very, very mature. He's played a lot of VFL. He's got hundreds seasons behind him in VFL, which is grown men playing against grown men.
Yeah.
So he's over in the SANFL right now, doing the same thing as he did the last 5 years in the VFL. Like the fact of the matter is, he was promised a first rucking spot to come over to Port. You know, unfortunately, Port have promised two guys, and then they went with Soldo first. But he's now got his opportunity,
Yeah, he does.
And you know what? I can tell you now, MJ, I don't think there's any guarantee that Soldo's actually cemented his spot right now with that first few stretch. So there's every possibility Sweet could actually play himself into a number one ruck spot here for Port Adelaide because he does offer quite a bit. He tackles, he gets around the ground really well.
Good mark. Yeah.
Oh, mate. And you sort of, I don't know about you, but every time I see a ruckman with a little bit of tape around their shoulders or something, you know that's a true ruckman, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. If there's not a mummy bandage on him, then you know they're a little soft. So, yes.
Yeah, so and he's got that, I don't know, it's in years gone by, we had a Briggs last year that came in around this time. We've had an O'Brien come in a couple of years before.
Steph Martin a while back. We always seem to get
whether
one
it's
every
Mitch
couple of
Clark,
years.
A few years ago,
that's
it was
gone back
Mitch
to
Clark
12
up
years,
in Queen, like in Brisbane, and he actually, took over that number one mantle. We've had plenty of instances of this over the journey. Even if you want to say we've had instances of Jackson being the number one ruck. We saw it last year with Gawn and Grundy. When Gawn missed, we saw Grundy really spike. We've just seen it year after year. Every time someone comes in as the number one ruck and a sole ruck. This is the key, the sole number one ruck. And his run isn't too bad either. So I wouldn't be too worried about that.
Fixtures really nice. Talk to me about it feels like you've mentioned those that are in the English and Gawn camp, R3, milk the money train for as long as it works, and then put your, ruck forward that's at basement price, back into the rucks if you want, flip him when he hits his price. Fine. It does feel like whether it's a Grundy, whether it's a Marshall, or whether it's a Cherry, while in principle you could argue it's the same trade with them at R2. Talk to me about a couple of things. One, we do have the Thursday night game. We have the option and opportunity to put him at R3, loophole the score, and he was excellent last week against St Kilda. I think it was like a 138 or something like that off the top of my head. Granted, he didn't ruck against much because Marshall was severely impacted, but he scored well, and who cares? The price is what matters to us right now. But it does feel in a coach's mindset as if they're Marshall owner, if they're a Cherry owner or a Grundy owner, yes, you can trade into Stewart or make a loophole maneuver. To you, does it not matter that if you're one of those three owners at some point, you're moving them out almost regardless this week? Whether or not, Sweet might need to maybe score a certain level, I'll listen to that. But to you, is it one of these three guys, doesn't matter who they are, you're moving them up and on to something else and taking Sweet?
Well, at the end of the day, it's all about our like-for-like match. Now, let's forget about positions right now.
Yes.
Who have you got more confidence about? Russell Ruck, who's leading their team, okay?
Coming off the back of a 130.
Coming off the back of a 130. And I know you just said a minute ago that he wasn't rucking against much, but the thing is, he did what a good ruck should do against no opposition.
Scored well.
It's well and good to say, oh, yeah, but Marshall, was injured.
Couldn't jump.
And you were rucking against Caminiti. But guess what? How many times have we seen these guys go up against inferior opposition before and suck at it? Rightio.
Yeah.
This guy took his opportunity. So I don't think we should be taking it from that point, that lens, if you want to, if that makes sense.
No, it's good. Yeah, definitely
He's
does.
absolutely dominated the guy. So he's done what we needed to. So let's just say, what would you think about 75, 80 as a sole ruck?
It feels a safe basement. Look, it's a tough matchup. Riley O'Brien's not the easiest to score against, but all it takes is a couple of nice hit-outs to advantage. All of a sudden, a couple of those turn into score involvements, takes a few contested marks, does a couple of good things at critical moments, which Showdown seem to give you a plethora of, and he gets to 75, 80 without too much work.
So you think about it now. Let's go through the rooks, okay?
Mm-hmm.
We've got Sam Closey, who's averaging 93 right now. We've
Still
got
fine.
Will Graham, 76. We've got even a Riley Bonner is at 80 at the moment.
Yeah.
And I know I've just included him just to put some figures on it, okay? Let's look at Brown in the back line.
Yeah.
He's averaging 60 right now. Zach Williams is 68. If Jordon Sweet averages around those ballpark figures, let's say 65 to 85, that's a win, yeah? And the thing is, you're not going to have that up and down saga because he's the sole ruck. He's the one
for a month plus
in the role. You see what I mean?
Yes.
So it's not like we're going to go, oh, yeah, Harley Reid's averaging 90. That's great. But we're not going to have that Darcy Wilson highs and lows. It's not going to be that roller coaster.
Not the volatile scoring.
Yeah. So I would have.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. To check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
More confidence that Jordon Sweet, his floor is going to be at a much higher floor than what another rookie would be at that price. But it's more about what you do with the cash. So what do you do on the second trade? And as I said to you before, mate, at this point in time, if you've got a little bit of cash in the bank, and we should all pretty much have some at some point in time, we've been trading our asses off for how long now?
6 weeks. Yeah.
But you think about even a Jeremy Sharp to a Jordon Sweet right now, you're banking at about 170,000 for that trade.
Yeah,
Like,
Cadman's about 100,000. Like even the
yeah,
smallest moves make a difference. Yeah.
and if you have a boost left, you only need 2 of those to get to a absolute gun. And I'm talking the Sarongs, the Merits of this world, the
Yeah, the top
Rows, if you
lines.
want to go that way. You know, we're talking
Yeah.
about the big dogs. You can actually go, and you might have been sitting there for the last 6 or 7 rounds going, how did I miss this guy? And
Yeah.
like, how many times have we been talking up Matt Rowell for years? Yeah.
Oh,
Matt
mate,
Rowell's going to
he's
be a
mate.
gun. He's a super coach. He's a beast. And we've missed him. Yeah. Like,
A lot of people have. He's gone
yeah.
131 for the season. So let's get really granular for a moment, just to really help people. And then I do want to talk about premium midfielders. Rowan Marshall owners, he's been okay the past 2 weeks. One of them, I think owners should just be grateful that he found a way to get back on and get you to a respectable score, because there was a minute there it looked like he was giving you, I think he went off the ground with a -3 or a -6. So there was a minute there that you were having a disaster. And while what he gave you last week's not ideal, it's better than what it looked like halfway through the first quarter. We'll know potentially by the time you're listening to this, we'll know what teams look like, whether or not he's named or not, whether Tom Campbell is in with him or not. I think it's more likely to be a Jack Hayes coming in and playing a relief ruck role from the forward line rather than 2 quote unquote pure rucks, but we'll wait and see. So Sweet in, if you're a Marshall owner, almost regardless of what Sweet does, is it a pivot regardless?
I think it is, mate. I really do. You know, at a break even of nearly 200 for
It's
Marshall,
huge, isn't it?
and then you've got a minus
198.
113 for Sweet, as you can see on the screen. Like, we're talking over 100,000 turnaround just in price itself, and we're not even
In one
thinking
move.
about. And if we're not talking about a fit, like very match fit, very
No.
super, we're talking about a guy who actually got injured last week. And
And has
Sweet
looked tired the
dominated.
week before too. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not just he's looked tired. The coach has publicly come out and said, hey, we're going to rest this guy. We need to manage
Multiple
him
times.
through to the end of the year. And it's not just once or twice anymore, MJ. It's actually multiple times. And you know the scariest thing? There's every chance that both of those guys come into the team, because it's not like St Kilda
Yeah.
have got any forwards right now.
No, and they've got North Melbourne this week. So even if he does play, we've seen previously, even as recent as last year, Rowan Marshall got subbed out because you could build a really compelling case that he's the most important player right now at St Kilda in terms of their structure.
So let's just go back 1 week, MJ, against
Please.
Western Bulldogs. He scored 51.
Mhm.
Now, people were buying into him at nearly 600,000 that
Yeah, they
week.
did.
And I know sometimes we have to bite the bullet, and we always preach, yeah, hold your premiums, back your premiums.
Sure.
But we've got a gift horse right now that's
With
staring
Sweet
us
there.
with Sweet.
Yeah.
That's a very easy trade to free up 400,000. Like,
Well, and it gives you the money to go any cash cow at any line that's made any money, throw that 400K on top of them, and you can politely, even with no money in the bank, get just about anyone in the game. So
and the fact
I'm
is,
with you
MJ,
on that.
think about this, okay? You've missed Gorn. I'm just going to put
For,
names to this,
for
okay?
those that aren't there, yes, please do that.
Let's go Marshall to Sweet, and we're just going to bank that 400K.
100%.
We wait for 2 weeks. Sweet's going to be close enough to 300,000, if not a bit more.
Yep.
You could pretty much just go straight to Gorn in 2 weeks' time. And you might have
Without
been
too much
sitting
effort.
there a couple of weeks ago going, how am I going to get to him? Well, guess what?
This
You've
is how.
only used 2 trades to do it.
Yeah, which is huge. And it's the same principle with Cherry too, I suppose, for those that don't have, and maybe even Grundy owners as well. I know some would say he's a hold for the season. I'm not so sure about that in SuperCoach. But to me, similar sort of ideology of what a break even of about 60 for Cherry this week, maybe another 30,000 left in him. No, I'm big on getting Sweet on field this week. If you want to take the conservative approach and look at his score first and put him at R3 and then move him up, be my guess. But I'm a big believer that if you're a Marshall, Cherry, or a Grundy owner, barring Sweet having an absolute stinkfest, you're finding a way to get him on field this week and maximize the money of those three guys.
And I'd like to have a conversation with those Grundy owners that think he's a hold, because he has had one of those years, MJ. The two hardest ruck opponents he's had is Gawn and Jared Witts, yeah? And that was round 0 and round 6, coming after the bye in round 6, and round 0 coming off fresh. And if we remember correctly, in round 0, Gawn tested him. He really pushed him in that up till quarter time.
Yep.
But then he's come out and he's gone bang. It's 139 and 158. That's against the two toughest ruck opponents. Everyone else, though, he's sort of just creeped through and he's sort of just done enough. But he doesn't look like the Brodie Grundy of 3 or 4 years ago.
No, he's had 2 weeks where he has.
Yeah, and I'd be like, let's be honest, I'd be scared out of my wits. Like if I'm got a Grundy versus a Gawn, or Grundy versus
or English
matchup.
Yeah, at any week, it could be 100-point turnaround. I'm with you. I think unless you're a Gawn and English owner, and unless Sweet absolutely goes sub 70, and even then I'm considering it, by the way, I've got to find a way. It would be my strong encouragement would be is find a way to get Sweet on field, and your Cherry, your Marshall, and also your Grundy, find a way to maximize it. Whether it's Cherry and you hold Marshall, sure, I'll hear that. Whether it's trade Marshall, hold Cherry, I'll hear that. But either way, I think most coaches want to get to an English and Gawn combination.
And let's think about
ideally.
English. Let's think about English, okay? He's had one awful game against Essendon.
Yes.
Not the greatest matchup. They've got two.
No, the double ruck.
Yeah. But the thing is, he was dreadful, mate. He was 58.
He played bad.
It was a shocker. But after that, I'm going to read out his scores. 119, 138, 124, 117, 114, 134. For a guy who didn't start the year on fire,
it's pretty good.
I tell you what, he's scoring all right. Imagine what's going to happen when he does go on fire.
Yeah, and look, there's some volatility with the key forwards and who he's ruck shared with and all that kind of stuff. So, no, I'm with you. All right, I feel like we've told people how to handle Sweet well enough. So potentially what they could be doing, whether it be Sweet off another topped out cash cow into R3, or they're moving off their R2 prospect, I think a lot of people are targeting in SuperCoach a midfield upgrade. Now, that's on the assumption. We always have to flag our assumptions when we're giving specific advice. I know we often say team dependent when we're trying to help people understand it, but it's times we also give, really curated advice. So if the assumption is people own Dacos, which again, the ownership numbers have spiked again over the past few weeks since coming back off his bye, most are now looking towards a midfield upgrade. And there's a bunch of guys, Rids, that are coming into or have now hit what could likely be their lowest price point for the year. Names such as a Bontempelli, Jordan Dawson, or this is a really tough matchup for him this week on paper. Christian Petrarca's probably got another week or two if you want to wait. Dunkley, depending on your buy structure. Goulden, Sarong, you alluded to earlier, a Tom Green. There is a bunch of different options that feel like between that 550 to 610, 620 range, we've got a bounty of options and we're not paying up for it. Who are the ones that lean their most favorable to you that you would prioritize as value? Is probably too loose of a statement, but made a little bit of money saving for you, and now you believe they're top line mids. Who are you targeting as an upgrade option this week, if indeed you're going for a premium midfielder this week?
I think the key is with this one, MJ, is because we've gone through and we've burnt so many trades already, I'm not looking for value if I'm going into the midfield this week. Sure. I'm looking for someone who is going to score for me. I want someone who I can trust week in, week out. And how many times have we gone into a matchup and we've gone, oh, this guy's going to start scoring well, and he just doesn't, And I'm talking like a Dunkley, for instance, or someone like that. Dawson's
Neil.
had games earlier in the season. Bontempelli's been a bit hot
LDU.
and cold.
Yeah.
Like LDU, we've had a few of these. So my number one target for this week, well, I've got two names. One of them is
Sure.
Caleb Sarong. I think his bye helps your team. I think
massively.
But I think his current fixture that's coming up is awesome. Especially
really nice.
with the sugar hit off Richmond this week.
Yeah.
And he's in form. He's averaging over 30 disposals a game. He's very influential. He's working hard. He's the number one mid in Fremantle right now. He's sort of, I know that Fife had that outstanding game on the weekend, but Sarong's still the number one mid. Okay.
Agreed. 17 clearances was amazing. Like, he's getting his hands on the ball, no problem.
So he's the number one. The number two is going to be an interesting one. And normally I'm a bit hesitant to go into a Zach Merritt, but he's raw. Like, he's plays West Coast a couple of times through to round 16. He's got a couple of easier matchups with Richmond and so on through that period of time. He's just looking a different beast this year, isn't he?
He looks next level, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I know that there's not much value in these guys, but sometimes we just have to bite the bullet and get the best of the best. Because I'm sure a lot of the community has traded into a Dawson or a Walsh over the last couple of weeks because they were valued.
Yes.
We're not going to be able, like, everyone should pretty much own Heaney and Flanders right now on the forward line, for instance.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
Like, they're the only two forwards that are jumping off the page as pick me.
Yep.
Everyone will probably have the defenders already in Sheasel and
Dacos
and Dacos and
Youngs,
Dacos.
maybe. Yep.
I could probably argue that Dacos is still a little bit of value.
Yeah, I think
so.
You could.
Yeah, but Yo, for instance, everyone should already have him. We've made enough cash now, mate, and we've got an extra few trades this year, and we've got the boosts, and we've really progressed our team to the point we've actually got solid cores now in this team. So the basis is there. We should be just going and getting the guys that we don't already own that are the best of the best in the midfield, whoever that is. And it doesn't matter if it is a Dawson, because you're an Adelaide Crows supporter. You might rate Dawson higher than me. But then the next guy might be a Port Adelaide guy that goes and talks up Kane, like Butters, for instance, okay?
Yeah.
But the fact is, for me, who's a bit of a neutral, there's two names that I'd be looking at. Well, there's actually three names, but the third name I cannot trade into this week, and that's Tom Green.
Yeah.
Due to the round 12 bye.
Talk to me about that, because I do want to come back to Zach Merritt in a minute. So, in fact, maybe while we're here, we're going to talk about the mid-season bye. Let's bring that ahead a little bit earlier. We are 4 full weeks away from the next batch of best 18. There are only 4 teams off that week. So the first 2 weeks of our multi-buys are relatively easy to work their way through. Tell me why, anti's a strong word, I understand, but why aren't you keen on Tom Green as an option, given probably outside of Dunkley and Goulden, you're probably not avoiding too many other premium mids? Talk me through your hesitancy around Tom Green as a trade-in option at this point.
Well, because I've come from old school, okay? This is how we used to play. We don't trade into a guy coming into a buy, because the fact is...
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
The next week, you could trade into someone who says, let's say round 13, for instance. I said Sarong a minute ago, okay?
Yeah, sure.
Sarong's pretty much playing an extra game up to his bye than what Tom Green is. And then that's not, I'm not neglecting Tom Green, but that's
You're just
4
saying
games.
Sarong's 5 out of 5 versus Green's 4 out of 5. You're going to favour the 5 out of 5 known factors.
And then what I'll do is I'll plan my team and my trades to trade into a Tom Green the week after his bye. So it is 5 out of 5 instead of 4 out of 5. That's the way I play the game. I know there's probably a lot of people out there that play it more new age fantasy style with the extra trades and everything else.
Sure.
I just don't want to be sideways trading to a guy with a bye to come up. I would rather go and pick someone this week, and I'll just pluck a name out of the sky, rightio?
Please.
Let's say Bailey Dale, who's got a massive break even right now. I'd rather go trade into a Bailey Dale this week, play him up to round 14, and then sideways trade him into a midfielder who's already had their bye, or round 13, whatever it is.
Yeah, get your Green at that point. Get your Butters at that point if you don't already. Maybe by then things have turned for Goulden, LDU, whatever it is. Yeah, all these kind of ones. So,
but guess what else it does, MJ? We've got a couple of rookies this week with a round 12 bye. We've got Darcy Jones. We've got Hardiman. We've got a few guys here
they'll be on the
that if
bubble in a
they
week.
pop,
Yeah,
we don't want to hamstring ourselves and have to fade one of these guys who's going to make a lot of cash. And that's why Sweet is such an awesome option, because guess what? No one's got a round 13 ruck, like buy ruck at the moment, because it's only 2 teams, mate.
Yeah.
So no matter how you look at it, it's just easy, yeah? And I know I say no one. I'm not classing Luke Jackson in that.
No, we'll get to him in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned about these top end options. Merritt, you've mentioned. I'm going to put Rowell in that as well. There's only a couple of guys that are going over 130 at the moment that are midfield eligible. We could take Heaney out of the mix of that, although he's technically there. Sam Walsh, 130 from now to the end of the year is unsustainable for him. And I think that's more just the way he scores. He's going to have games like he did on the weekend, which is he goes a ton, but he's going to have a 50% disposal efficiency, and it's just going to hurt him a little bit. Whereas Rowell and also Merritt, who's right on the edge of going 130, to be fair. These are the top end guys, Merritt, Rowell, Sarong, the big boys of 2024. Are you comfortable? I know you've already said it for Merritt, but Rowell's at a comparable space and only 14,000 more expensive, more than Sarong. So maybe that talks you out of it. But are you happy to pay $600,000+ for guys, knowing that in a week's time, Petrarca is going to be $100K cheaper? Clayton Oliver is going to be crazy cheap. And then already the other names that we've already alluded, the Bontempellis, the LDUs, just a plethora of previously proven 110 guys. Are you genuinely happy to fork out $100K more, knowing that in 2 weeks' time, you might be able to get your upgrade cadence just that half week ahead of the pack?
Well, I am, but only this week. Because the thing is, Petrarca is still going to be there very cheap next week.
Yes, he will.
It's the matchups I'm looking for this week to get that sugar hit with the guy coming in. But it's also the confidence I got on a Zach Merritt, on a Caleb Sarong, for instance. Matt Rowell, we could probably and ah whether we've got confidence around and whether our appetite for that risk at that price point, because we just haven't seen him do it for a full season at this standard. He's very capable though, MJ. He's very, very capable to do it. But
his lowest score of the year is 99, and his second lowest score of the year is 129. So he's going just fine.
He's going fine, and it's a great pick for everyone that jumped on him at the start, mate. But the thing is, do I want to pay to be proven right or wrong? Because that's going to be a season killer.
654 is a lot of money. Yeah,
it's too much money for that. Whereas a Zach Merritt, we've seen it for years. Yeah, we may not have seen it at this level, but it's still within 10, 15 points of what we've seen before. And you could probably argue, Not really, but you could probably argue though with Zach Merritt, okay, that the team as a whole is better. So
Yes, I
they're
think
going to
that's a fair
have
statement.
more score attributed to them. So just out of that, like people work into space, he's going to hit people better. Am I worried about the tag? What kind of tag is going to stop? We haven't seen anything about a tag this year, have we? Like, can you
Not
think
really.
of one tag that's been applied for the whole year that's actually done a job outside of Windhager a couple of weeks ago for Josh Kelly?
Yeah, you could maybe argue Finn McGuinness in principle, but Windhager's the one that's killed someone. Outside of that, um, we haven't seen, and we normally don't, to be fair, over the first 2 months of the year. It's often a lot of coaches go, our game style versus your game style, we're going to take each other on. And then once we get into the groove of the season, which we are now, okay, then occasionally we start to see that lockdown. But even that, like Merritt's become much more attacking forward half of the ball. His defensive work rate is through the roof. He's kicking goals. And so, yeah, if I'm paying over 600K, like he's in the conversation if you're not a Sarong owner for sure.
Yep. So that's the point. Am I scared of a tag? Yes, I am.
Yeah,
but is every
very-
team going to tag? Is it going to be a week after week after week proposition? No, it's not.
No.
So would I trade into a Hawthorn matchup this week with Sam Mitchell as angry as what he is? No, probably not. But I'm not
Probably
doing
not.
that.
No.
You know, you think about the matchups that I'm talking about, Richmond, West Coast. We're talking about teams that are in rebuild to a point. What's
Yeah,
the
that's true.
benefit of these teams actually
Oh.
having a tagger go out and stop someone? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful to West
No,
Coast,
no,
but
no.
the fact of the matter is they've won a couple of really good games.
They have
But the
looked good.
thing is, no one's talking about them as finals contenders. No one's talking
No.
about Adam Simpson having to save his job. You know, they're the sort of conversations I worry about with the tag. Because you think
Yeah.
about it, like Sam Mitchell had expectations this year,
Yes,
and
he
he's
did.
been disappointing. The team's been disappointing.
Yes, they have.
Guess what they did well late last year, MJ, where they
Yeah,
were
they
winning
locked down.
games.
Yeah, they
They
are locking
locked
down with
down.
McGuinness. Yeah.
And
It's an
guess who
interesting
was
one.
missing at the start of this year, who's now playing, is Will Day. The
Yeah.
thing is, I think Sam Mitchell was hesitant to do that because he didn't think the midfielders were able to win the ball on that one-on-one matchups.
Sure.
But now Will Day's there. Now Jai Newcomb's starting to find a bit of form. They're not going to be torn up if they do have a designated tagger in that midfield. So whilst I'm not scared, I am
Sure.
cautious.
You're aware that at any given week, again, matchups pending, we do know there's a history of Merritt receiving attention. It's a bit more distant history. There is history where he does dish out 50s, but more likely as an 80 or a 90, which again, if that's your basement, I'm okay with that. It feels like a luxury trade, but seeing it scattered across the community currently, Luke Jackson is in 41% of teams. Priced over 500,000, going an average of 100. Now that's certainly bolstered by a monster score in round 2, but the reality is it's what he's got. No tons in the past 5 weeks, Rids, and a break even 120, and Sean Darcy back in the side. All of these things, you stack them up, you go, maybe it's time to go. To you, is Luke Jackson for the almost 50% of the competition? Is this a trade out priority this week, or are there other spot fires or focuses that Jackson owners should have?
Well, the first things first, who are you trading him to in the
Yes.
forward line I'm
Always
talking about?
important.
Like, there isn't anyone in the forward line that's absolutely creaming it right now. Like, who are you
Outside of Heaney
trading
and
Luke
Flanders,
Jackson to?
no.
Like, oh, well, Sam Darcy's been okay. Harley Reid's
Yeah,
been
that's true.
okay, but they're
Yeah,
not
okay.
premiums.
No.
Like, okay, that's the first thing. The second thing
Yep.
is I wouldn't talk anyone into trading him in, put it that way. Okay. So
No.
there's no
No.
conversation happening. Oh, yeah, you got to get Luke Jackson this week. That's not happening.
No.
But the thing is, are you going to trade out? Okay. So who to? It's not like we've got this luxury of 55 mid forwards sitting in the midfield to trade him to the best midfielder in the comp. It's not.
Sure.
But guess what? Luke Jackson to Jordon Sweet does work, MJ.
What
It's
keeps your buy
actually a
structure
very
very
nice
good,
one.
by the way, with the round 13 buy? Yeah.
And I can tell you now, and you're 100% correct with what you said before. Luke Jackson had 200s to start the year, bang, bang. And ever since then, he hasn't been amazing. He hasn't been terrible, though. We've talked in 2 scores of 70, 3 scores of 90. Well, like, it's not the end of the world. And he does give us that flexibility. But we may not have a DPP R3 after this week, especially if you own English and Gawn. So again, we go
depending how
back
you're
to
getting to Sweet.
yeah. Well, if you've got English and Gawn, and you had Luke Jackson, that's a perfect way to free up coin, mate. And we've got enough rookies, okay, that are performing close enough to the top of the line or that second layer of the top of the line.
Yes.
That you'd be absolutely crazy not to actually explore it at the very least. But if you've got Jordon Sweet as your R2, okay, you should not be trading out of Luke Jackson this week, put it that way. Because you want to have that security of having to swing someone in and loop Sweet and Jackson to a point at R2.
Absolutely.
In that sort of world.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you talk about matchups over the next couple of weeks, just looking at it for Fremantle. They're at the MCG against Richmond. You'd think that's relatively on paper favourable. The Swans the week after at Optus, on paper a bit trickier. And then that's St Kilda at Marvel Stadium. So there's a couple of matchups there that if I was Luke Jackson, and remember last year in Supercoach, he still gave us tons where he was the 60, 70% forward. So if you think that he can get his hands on a couple of decent grabs up forward, let alone match up really well against opposition's team number 2 ruck, gee whiz, you're in a luxurious position if Jackson is the trade out option this week for you. If you're prioritizing him out over Dempsey, Sharp, Clark, whatever, like my oh my, you're doing well.
He's averaging 102. So if you started him at the start of the year and it's now round 7, you've got 700 points for Luke Jackson.
Correct.
Like you should be just cashing in now. But again, it's going to depend who you got at R1 and R2.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary for people.
Someone like myself who does have gone English at R1 and R2 is I have to explore Jackson to
moving him on
at R3.
Yes, absolutely, you should.
And
but
that's
again,
what I'm doing this week.
That's for the coaches that are in that, the thousands of coaches that have that unique, using that term loosely, combination. That's the beauty of, why we often would give information such as we say, well, it's team dependent. It's because no one team looks the same. No coach coaches and trades and looks at the game the same and is considering the same rookie roulette options and vice captaincy. And so certainly not ever with us or anybody else, I would presume as a cop-out sentiment, but rather to go, let's help you to learn how to make good decisions for your team rather than being a slave to what a content creator says you should or shouldn't do. So that I think you're spot on the money with that. Tell me, there's 2 other things I want to ask you before we wrap up the episode. I was venturing into getting on my sermon soapbox and then decided I'd walk away from that. It does feel like now's this interesting time of the season, and we talked about it a little bit, not just because of best 22s and the upcoming mid-seasons, and a lot of coaches use different volumes and levels of trades, different elements of luck. Some have held the faith with a couple of guys that have turned the heads and corners. I'm referring to a Young and a Martin. Others have started different ruck structures. There's a lot of variance is what I'm trying to say, but the priorities for coaches this week is really interesting. Should coaches be at all costs keeping that upgrade cadence of one up, one down, get a new premium into my side so that I'm pretty completed in the buys, let alone coming out of the buys? Or is prioritizing our bench hygiene, which is that terminology you introduced over the past 12 months around making sure that while not losing points on field, you're not doing it at the cost of having no money being generated through your benches? What should coaches be prioritizing this week? I know it might be a bit easier for a Jordon Sweet who sits in the mix of that, but over this week and next, help coaches who are kind of like, do I do this upgrade or do I just bench and build cash? How do they know which lever they should be pulling this week?
So what you got to do first off is you got to sit there and work out how many premiums you need to get on the ground and where they sit.
Sure.
Okay, so you might have, let's just say you might have 3 or 4 left in the midfield to get up to. You might be completed in the back line right now because that's probably more likely than not, because we've had the Martins come through. We've had a few DPP guys. Even a Matt Roberts right now is going well enough.
D6 is fine. That's fine.
You know, and at round 12, you could just flick him to whoever best suits. Like it's not too bad, a little. So if you think about it, you've got to work it out. So that decision then becomes, do I need bench hygiene in my team? How much cash do I have sitting on the bench making me money? What can I actually downgrade and cull to actually get an upgrade? How many trades do I have? How many boosts do I have? You've got to think through all of this. You should not be jumping early. Let's just say the gentleman that's on your screen right now in Hardeman. You don't need to force that trade. You've got a Jordon Sweet this week on the bubble.
Well, you got Rogers as well if you're desperate for 2 downgrades. Yeah.
Exactly. So you've got enough there. Okay. There's enough. Woden, if you're really desperate. But again, are you really increasing your bench hygiene or are you actually trading in someone that's still fringe?
Deciding which credit card or loan is right for you is like trying to choose where you want to eat for dinner. Except when you finally get to the restaurant, the menu's riddled with jargon that no average foodie could understand. So at Credit Karma, we keep things simple. We show you personalized recommendations that align with your money goals and help you turn the confusing fine print into terms you can actually understand. And as a cherry on top, we provide a detailed overview for a new card or loan before you apply. That way, we can help you make decisions faster and with more confidence. Download Intuit Credit Karma today to get started.
Like at least with a Rogers, he is got a role. Yeah. And he won the Rising Star last week, mate.
He was excellent. He's been good the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, so the fact is you've got Rogers, you've got Sweet this week. Who can you get to? Like what's the mid and who from, MJ? Because we just had a conversation about Luke Jackson, yeah?
Yeah.
So if you're going Luke Jackson to Jordon Sweet, why you probably could hold your second boost and then get a Dempsey type up to Caleb Sarong this week or whoever, okay? That's the sort of understanding, and that's why it is team specific. But the thing is, what's your buy structure like? Whilst we want to keep doing that upgrade cadence, the fact is, we still got to be careful not to force those trades, mate. Because at times we go too hungo. Like you think about it, okay? AF has created a bit of a monster, okay? When we come to SuperCoach, there is no, I hate to think about it, but there is no strategy outside of you have to trade and keep the upgrade cadence going. Otherwise, you're going to fall behind the pack. And you've got to keep forcing, because you're just so keen to get it out of the way. Like, it's probably not teaching us the right way we should be doing things. But the thing is, that's the world we live in, yeah? That's what we got now.
Is evolving for us. So I suppose I want to ask one last question before we wrap up the episode. There have been some players that have just been awesome for us for big chunks of this year. And I think there's also some guys that are coming in at pretty hard to resist spots. I think we've said it multiple times across the almost decade we've been doing the coaches panel. But certainly throughout this episode, we've even alluded that, look, nothing's ever a must have, but you do set yourself back if you don't have certain players or make certain trades at certain spaces. So I guess my question for you, Rids, is this: we're a third of the way through the season at the end of this round. Who are the players that in your eyes for SuperCoach, if you don't have them this year, whether you've got them to date or you don't, and you might need to prioritize them, who are the handful, two handfuls, whatever it is, the players that you go, look, to have a successful season, it's going to be really hard to do it without these players. I know that feels like a cheat code way of saying must-haves, but I think people understand what I'm trying to say. Who are the guys that if you don't have, it's going to be really hard to get top of the tree in your ranks or win your league? Have you got a handful of names for us?
Well, I think there's two guys, okay, that just sit above most of everyone, and that's pretty much Gordon in English. I would argue that the top won't have either of those guys. They might have different combinations. They might, but the thing is, they are. I don't know. It's just going to be hard to, have that sort of year. Harry Sheezel has started with a bang. If you don't own Harry Sheezel right now,
well, you haven't started.
It's probably. No, your ranking's probably. Would you trade into Harry Sheezel right now? I probably would convince people not to until after he's had his bye. Because the thing is, now you've got the bye as a safeguard. And we only just spoke about it a minute ago. You can go whoever I trade in. Let's say Bailey Dale. Okay. And I'm using him a little bit because he's got a -47 break even. So it's probably a conversation piece anyway.
It's a reasonable one to assume. Yeah.
You can get 5 scores of Bailey Dale for 4 Sheezel scores. Now, he may very well not still score the same or match it at the very least, but at least you're getting 5 goes at it, okay?
And you're saving around about 200K too. So,
and you're making money in the process, and you can also then, hopefully with a bit of luck, Sheezel's role you can get a bit more information around the role. Is Sheezel going to stay at half back? Is he going to be pushing into the midfield? He might cop a low score over the next 4 weeks as well and come down in value while Bailey Dale's going up. And suddenly it's not going to cost you 300,000 between the two. It's going to cost you 200,000 or 150 instead of 250. Okay.
Sure.
So that's the sort of trades I'd be looking at. A little bit more strategy around it because you're going to have that extra one and you can't shift a Dale to a Sheezel after round 12.
Yes.
So that's the whole point of it, rightio. But they're the two that jump off the screen. I think Caleb Sarong, I just don't see a world at the moment he's not going to do what he's doing. And I hate saying he's untaggable. Of course he's taggable, and guys like Willem Drew and stuff have done it in the past.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we just saw Fife go absolutely nuts on the weekend, yeah? Are you going to send them to a guy who is in and under everything in Caleb Sarong? Or are you going to send them to a Fife who's absolutely ripping your heart out with what he's doing right now and inspiring his team and the crowd and everything else? Who knows? Or do you just go, you know what, I'll have a bit each way. But again, it's a hard decision, rightio. But he's another one that I would be, I'd be a bit worried. Ask me 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, Bontempelli would have been at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Now, there's just something not quite right with Bontempelli at the moment. I don't know whether it's a Bulldogs Association or whether it's there's just something not right. When the Bulldogs needed their inspirational captain to be in the guts and to be winning that game of football against the Freo Bull in Fife, Bontempelli sat on the bench for 8 minutes, mate. There's something not right there. I don't know what it is. We'll probably likely find out at the end of the year. Yeah, Bontempelli was carrying something, through that period. And we saw it last year, with Andy Brayshaw, with Jack Steele, with a few others. If you had asked me before Tim Mitchell traded into Jack Steele 2 weeks ago, I would have had Jack Steele there. But the kiss of death has gone on to Jack Steele. And
he owns it, which I love.
The Band-Aids and the bandages and the injuries have come back. And it's all Tim. Like, let's not be silly about this, yeah? It's 100%
he says it's him. Yeah, he's very happy.
He owns it. He puts his hand up. He actually is starting to tell people who he's trained into each week.
It's your own worst enemy. If you're trading in and Tim's going, "Hey lads, I'm doing this." Okay, yep, jump off.
And the funny thing about it though, MJ?
Yeah.
He's one hell of a coach too.
He's having a good year.
He knows
he's doing really
his stuff. Imagine what happens if he didn't tell everyone and jinx it every single week. Like, he would actually be that far in front of everyone. It'd be ridiculous, right? So, in a way, he probably can't win anything anyway because he works for
That's why. That's what he's doing.
So, and
he's like, if I can't win it.
You think of Dossie, who's just moved over into the SC world.
Yes.
I mean, he's Dossie on speed, like type scenario. Like, and we all have history with Dossie and AF and everything else.
Yeah, we do love him. He's a good man.
Yeah, well, these guys are legends, So
yeah, they're great people, no doubt.
But the fact of the matter is, they're the type of guys. And if you pull up that list again, you had pitchers like Nick Dacos. We can always and whether he's going to take your season away from you. At the moment, I don't think his role is like it was last year when he was taking the season away from us in the early days.
Yep.
But I tell you what, mate, this guy can play football. He's a footballer, this guy. And his IQ is through the roof. So he's learning a new craft inside on the midfield in the Big Boys League. And he's learning it quickly. So
he's going to be a gun.
But you think about Nick Martin, the other guy you had in that picture. He went forward in the last quarter last week. Now, whether it was related to Jones and the sub of Hind coming on and Hind only playing that role, who knows, mate? But I can tell you now, at the start of the fourth quarter, Nick Martin, before the injury occurred, was in the forward line.
Yeah.
So
it's true.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's still questions everywhere right now. And what a year, though, MJ, yeah? The other two guys I just want to highlight is it's Heaney and it's Flanders right now.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, mate, if you don't have Heaney right now, I'd probably be telling you not to trade into him either. Because I don't know what's going to happen when Parker's back. I don't know what's going to happen with Mills. I don't know where Tay Adams plays his best football, where he doesn't with a full team. I just have no idea. I have no idea if the young boy from last year in Sheldrick comes into that team after a few games and does what he did last year. Mate, there's that much questions at the moment.
The holiday season officially starts when you get that first card in the mail. Shutterfly makes it easy to add more meaning to the everyday with hundreds of holiday card designs that can be personalized in seconds with your favorite photos from this year. Select your greeting, customize the color, and even add little extras like personalized foil to make a holiday card that really shines. Enjoy 40% off with code SMILE40 at Shutterfly.com and send something meaningful this year. See site for more details.
But the thing is, you just got to be patient a little bit.
You do.
Let the time go to get your answers. Don't just trade into them because that's what we're doing because it's more AF and more trades and more boosts. Because guess what? We're going to run out of trades at about round 18, 19, and we're not going to have any trades when it comes to finals time. And yes, we're all going for rank right now.
Sure.
But I mean, we still want to brag to our mates, in the finals.
Still want to win a league or two, don't we? Let's be honest.
We've got to shit stir them, mate.
Let's be honest. If the opportunity is to get more and save 240K, give or take, or get Heaney, I'm taking a Dylan Moore type. Like for me, like I'm absolutely doing that. And that might feel like I'm skimping on options, but the damage is done with Heaney, for example. Now you're just paying through the roof for it. The damage is done. You've missed it, mate. I'm going elsewhere. So,
yeah, but I can tell you now, mate, Jackson Macrae last week was not a bad player. He had a pretty good game last week.
He was good. It just, oh yeah.
I don't know. CD's got this. Maybe they've been playing AF for a while, and they've got that whole negativity about Macrae at the moment. Because I thought he was harshly dealt with, with his score last week. But that was, I didn't go in and check all these stats and made sure it all. Someone like Jaden does that. Not a drama, okay?
Yeah.
And what I'll do is, if Jaden's listening to this, I might reach out to him and get him on one day to actually talk us through it all. But the fact of the matter is, it's still, some of this is subjective, still unknown, secret herbs and spices type. But someone like Macrae, I just would be a little bit hesitant to be traded into at the moment in SuperCoach, this is. Because I just, how many times have we been through years where we go, oh, so-and-so had a good game. Oh, he's scored 80 this week. And so-and-so didn't have a great game and he scored 120. And yes, we get that answers why later, but we're still not really clear on how that's happened. And that's what I did last week, with Macrae. I actually was watching the game and I was thinking, Macrae's got a lot of effort here. He's going hard. And you think about it, you said it a minute ago, mate, like, who were you talking about with the guy that wasn't effective with his contested ball?
Oh, Sam Walsh.
Yep. So that's the whole thing, is it's still objective, If it's a 50-50 contest, you've kicked the ball to, and it falls the wrong way, is that ineffective? Is it not? Like, it's still subjective to a point.
Yep.
And it's still determined by luck to a point as well at times.
Yep, I think that's fair. Hey, mate, you've given us a power of stuff to process and to think through, which is one of the things I appreciate about you, but also, the guys here that we work with at the coaches panel help us process things through, give us ideologies to marinate on, and then give us the information we need and confidence we need to be able to then make the right trades for our unique team and situation and mindset. Hey, mate, as always, a pleasure talking SuperCoach with you.
Always, mate.
If you want to go and check out any of the other episodes we've done, we've got an AFL fantasy strategy episode in the same place you're checking out this one. You can go and do that every single week. We are dropping a SuperCoach focused episode as well as an AFL fantasy, so you can go and do that. If you're watching these on video, hi, nice to see you. Comment below and let me know in YouTube, who are you trading in SuperCoach to this week and how many boosts have you got left? If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you go and do that as well. And if you're listening to this via any of the audio podcast platforms, make sure you followed us along through there, giving it a 5-star rating. And if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, give a review. And if it's a nice one, I'll even read it out on an upcoming SuperCoach strategy episode. So if you want a bit of a shout out, get to work and we'll do that for you. Well, if you want to become a Patreon, these guys and girls are getting some incredible bonus content. There is a tier that's right for you, but can I encourage you, the premium tier is getting some level content. They are getting 4 podcasts a week out of us, as well as hidden group access to a bunch of different stuff. The rewards our premium tier Patreons are getting this year, let alone anyone that's a Patreon, are just elite. If you want to jump in and become a Patreon, follow us on social media or get in touch with us in any way you can. All the details for those things are in the description of this episode. Hey, good luck with round 8. We hope your vice captain nails it early in the round so you don't get stuck on those 50-50 captain calls. I hope Rookie Roulette is kind to you and your upgrade moves and your bench hygiene decisions all land perfectly for you. Until we talk to you next week, good luck, and we hope it is a good week for you.